Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be yet another childhood ruining conspiracy theories video for you guys. I love these videos because if there's anything to me that's fun, it's just taking your favorite childhood shows and ruining them. I've always just thought these videos are kind of funny, especially because they're usually so unserious, which I love because, you know, when you do all the true crime stuff and the different theories that are going on in like real world and with real people, it's nice to take a little break and to just step back and ruin your childhood in like the most wholesome way because it's like these are all stupid, you know what I mean? It's just fun. So without further ado, let's get into the childhood ruining conspiracy theories. All right, the first couple theories that I want to talk about come from Peppa Pig. I did not watch Peppa Pig growing up. I don't even know when the hell that show came out, but it's past my time. Like, it was for the younger kids. But I think this is so funny, but my friend Kira is British. And so me and Kira one day convinced my father that she is the voice of Peppa Pig, and like he believed it and got so excited about it, and it always cracks me up to this day. But either way, there are some dark theories that I saw on TikTok about Peppa Pig that I found to be pretty interesting. So the first theory is that Peppa Pig is actually designed to control children. And I think you could kind of implement this theory into any children's show because they kind of have that same structure of subtly influencing children's behaviors and emotions. And just like, it's low-key psychological control. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. But the episodes of Peppa Pig really follow a repetitive structure where Peppa and her friends engage in small activities. And each episode usually has the characters following the same type of behavior over and over again, just in different scenarios or slightly different scenarios. And the reason that people believe that this is used to control children in a sense is that it's subtly teaching children to expect repetition rather than to kind of think critically or creatively. And I think that's kind of scary. Like, when you think about it, it's like, yes, like you could think, oh, just children's shows, they like to, like, they can't comprehend, they like to see the same thing over and over again. But that's probably not that true, you know? Like, I think if we showed them more, like, not documentaries or anything like that boring, but TV shows and movies with, like, deeper meaning plots, I think kids could get it. Also, to be fair, Peppa is such a brat, and, like, she has a very assertive behavior. She always gets what she wants. She's entitled. Her attitude is just a lot. She also challenges the authority figures in her life a lot, like her teachers and her family members, which again is kind of strange. And then also she always wins without consequence. Personally, I like that because, you know what, Alex Russo taught me that. Alex Russo was my Peppa Pig. She taught me to like go against the older people. I mean, in a way different aspect because obviously Wizards of Waverly Place is for older children, but I kind of like that whole like not respecting your elders thing. Like, I know like most people would think that's bad to teach children, but I think respect people who respect you. It doesn't matter if they're old or not. Like, I kind of like that Peppa just comes in and challenges the authority figures, like her parents and her teachers, and honestly, usually she wins. And I'm like, period, girl, go ahead. See, this is why I'm not a parent. I know that's like not probably correct or good, but I do feel like Peppa's behavior kind of encourages children to maybe question things a bit more and question their authorities a bit more, which I actually kind of don't think is a bad thing, but I'm sure some people who actually have children would probably disagree. I also think it's kind of funny that on Peppa Pig, the parents, especially Daddy Pig, is very, like, portrayed very incompetent or powerless. I think that could also cause some interesting dynamics in the household. But yeah, I just think it's interesting that the adults have all of these weird, foolish roles and like the kids almost come across as smarter than the adults. And that's kind of in a lot of TV shows. I wonder if, like, you know, people who make children's TV shows are just bored and are like, let's put this in there and kids are now gonna like go against their parents. But I like this because these theories add a bit of a darker, deeper interpretation of Peppa Pig. So let me know what you guys think. All right, this one is quite childhood ruining. I loved Barney as a kid, and there is a dark theory that Barney is actually a cult leader. So Barney is the ultimate charismatic leader, central figure who uses his charm and authority and hypnotic influence to control children. Like a real life cult, his followers absolutely adore him and are obsessed with Barney. I also think most people come up with this theory from the song I Love You, You Love Me, because it's just like, yeah, I love you, you love me. Like telling the fucking kids what to do. I don't know, brainwashing them, I guess, into an unquestioning loyalty is kind of the theory behind this, and I just think that that's funny. I also think it's kind of funny that the kids have to literally summon Barney for him to like appear. That's kind of sketch. That feels kind of cultish. And Barney literally comes to life when the kids need him and disappear when they don't need him. It kind of checks out and like looks similar to how a lot of cult leaders kind of present themselves as these like larger than life figures that are only available to their followers when their followers need them. I just think it's funny, the idea that these kids are getting indoctrinated into a cult through the form of I love you, you love me. Like, I can't. But also, it kind of makes sense. Purple also represents, like, royalty and power. So I think that that's kind of funny that he's purple. Is it stupid? Yeah. But do I believe it? Also kind of. Barney kind of creeps me out. He just has power over them and power over like their parents, and there's no other authority figures in the show, and the children are just brainwashed. Like they have blind loyalty to this fucking purple dinosaur, and there's really no room for individuality in Barney. Like the kids are always seen working in groups, and that kind of group think dynamic is similar to cults. I'll say it. Also, the children get concerned on several episodes of Barney and Friends about disappointing Barney. Like, they seek his approval, and they want to make sure that they're following his lessons properly, which, I mean, that just sounds like a cult to me. I don't know. All right, the next two theories come from Scooby-Doo. I love Scooby-Doo. I love Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. That's my favorite because of the Hex Girls. I just love Scooby-Doo. The live action. Why are the lead four of the live action Scooby-Doo all hot for? Like, who asked you for that? But there is a pretty dark theory that Shaggy accidentally killed the mystery gang, and the events that happen in Scooby-Doo are just figments of his imagination and a way to cope with being responsible for their deaths. The theory goes that Fred, Velma, Daphne, and Scooby were killed at Shaggy's hands. There's kind of a couple different theories as to how. Some people suggest a car accident because Shaggy's kind of known to be a reckless driver, and he was driving the mystery van, and he got into a crash and was the only one that survived. Other people claim that he left the oven on, which I don't know what the hell that reference is from or why. But I guess that could have happened, and he killed the entire mystery gang. And the theory continues that Shaggy just creates this world where the team is still solving mysteries together and they're still alive, but it's not actually real. It's just Shaggy's way of coping with the guilt. Each mystery that they have to solve is really just a way for Shaggy's mind to distract him from dealing with the truth. We also know that Shaggy uses drugs and food, and which I think both can be seen as a coping mechanism. Like, there's so many allusions to him being a stoner. It's kind of like an ongoing joke at that point. And also excessive eating, which could be a result of him being a stoner and actually not related to trauma, but it could be. Who knows? So according to this theory, the monsters are all symbols of Shaggy's guilt, and every time he unmasks a monster, it represents Shaggy attempting to solve his trauma by reducing it to something that he can understand and process. It especially makes sense when you reveal that the people in these monster costumes are just people. They are humans at the end of the day when they take the mask off. And I think it's Shaggy metaphorically trying to downplay the horror of his accident, because while some people may see him as a monster, he's still just a human to his core. This kind of reiterates the theory and the reasoning behind all of the monsters being humans at the end of the day. Like the ghosts, the monsters, the supernaturals, they all end up being humans no matter what. So it's thought that the reason that is because Shaggy sees himself as a monster, but he knows deep down at the end of the day he is just a human and it was an accident. I don't know. I kind of believe this theory. I think it makes quite a bit of sense, but I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it. And essentially, it just ends with the idea that he's just stuck in this purgatory prison of the mystery man. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. The next theory is that Fred is actually a villain, or I guess was a villain in the past. So Fred has a pretty unmatched skill in building elaborate traps, and he also understands the traps a lot. He's seen as like, obviously, I feel like Velma is seen as the smartest, but Fred is a really close second. And the theory is that he's so good at solving these mysteries because he used to participate in this type of behavior. So he knows exactly how criminals think. Another aspect of this theory that I think checks out to the theory as a whole is that Fred's character is very, very neurotic. Like, he needs to be the leader. And I think that somebody who's like that is sometimes because they're trying to cover up something. Like, I feel like he is the leader so that he can constantly lead the mystery gang in a direction that's not going to expose his past. I think this makes kind of a lot of sense, I will say. I also think Fred is pretty stoic in behavior. He remains calm, he's methodical, and just quite strategic, and he would make a really great criminal, in my opinion. And I just think it makes so much sense because obviously if he's leading the group, he's going to get them to not catch on to him have been evil in the past, but also he would be really good at everything that he's good at, which he is. So like, I don't know, like, I think it makes sense. And it's kind of like, is this a redemption arc for him? Does he see it as like, oh, I did this in my past, so now I'm gonna bust other people? I don't know. Like, is he just trying to undo his wrongs? Unsure. Or does Fred just really need to prove himself? Which is a whole nother thing. Like, he's just like this hero, but it's rooted in selfishness because he needs to prove to himself that he's a good person so that he can gain fame and validation. I think that's interesting too. Fred's the worst character by far. Between all of the mystery gang, Fred's the woe. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this because I think this theory is pretty interesting. All right, the next theory I want to talk about has to do with Family Guy. I have always thought about this and wondered and tried to come up with theories on my own as to why Brian is the only person who can hear Stewie talk. Now, there are kind of some stragglers who can hear Stewie talk. For one, Chris sometimes hears him talk. But also there are some situations where people outside of the Griffin family can hear him and understand him. I don't know why. I mean, it's Family Guy. Like, none of it is supposed to make sense, but we're trying to make sense of something that's not supposed to make sense. So let's get into it. The first theory is that Brian is actually Stewie's intellectual equal, and that's why he's able to understand him. So obviously Brian is portrayed as pretty smart character of the family, like probably the smartest character of the family besides Stewie. So it kind of makes sense that because the two are on the same intellectual level, that Stewie and Brian are able to understand each other because they're more self-aware and intelligent than the rest of the Griffin family. My thing about that theory, though, is that I don't think Brian's the smartest of the family because I think Brian's fucking annoying. I hate Brian. He is the worst character ever, and he's a smart ass is what he is because he's not actually smarter than anyone else. He's so annoying. Oh my god, I could make a whole fucking video that no one would watch about why I hate Brian Griffin so much, but I do. Stewie is clearly the smartest of the family, but besides that, I don't even know. They're all kind of dumb. But the only thing that doesn't really make sense with that theory is how can Chris understand him sometimes, because obviously Chris is seen as the dumbest one of the family, but maybe that's just a perception. Maybe Chris is actually much more intelligent than we think, which kind of prompts its own interesting theory. The theory that I have always personally believed is that it's selective perception, and that the adults are just kind of just choosing to ignore Stewie. So Stewie be yapping. Like, not gonna lie, he be yapping. If he was my child, I would be like, yeah, like, okay, girl, whatever. But Brian's the only one who actually, knows how intelligent Stewie really is, and so when he talks, he's actually comprehending and understanding what Stewie is trying to convey. Which I think this is kind of a funny theory because I just feel like they're like, he's just a baby. He's just yapping. And I do feel like the Griffins would do that low-key. But then sometimes Stewie says things that'll pique Chris's interest, which is why he decides to listen. I kind of believe that. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, especially if you were a Family Guy girly growing up. I fucking love Family Guy. It makes sense that Brian and Chris, who maybe have felt misunderstood themselves in the past, are the ones who actually listen to what Stewie has to say. I kind of think that theory makes the most sense, but let me know your thoughts. Speaking of adults not being able to understand babies, the last theory I want to talk about has to do with Rugrats. So something that has bothered me since I was a child was, why the fuck can Angelica understand the babies? And the adults can understand Angelica, but the adults can't understand the babies. That has always annoyed me, and let's talk about some theories as to why that is. So the first theory is pretty simple. It's just the fact that Angelica is a toddler, so she's kind of in between the stages of being a child and not. So like the theory goes that she can just kind of understand the baby talk and whatever they're yapping about. But I don't think that that really makes that much sense, that she's kind of seen as like this barrier between the worlds, that, or a bridge really between the worlds of the adults and the babies. I just never got that. I never got it. But like, to me, I think the theory that Angelica is actually just delusional as fuck is so funny and probably accurate. So I just think her playing with the babies, it's kind of like when a kid plays with dolls. Like, the dolls are not actually talking or thinking things, but you like pretend that they are. So I think the babies are real, because I know there's a theory that Angelica is like schizophrenic and made them all up in her head. I don't think that. I think that she just is playing with the children how she would play with dolls, which is kind of fucked up, but also so something Angelica would do, I feel. Like, to pass her time, she's creating these elaborate narratives for these children that she sees every day. And I just think it's like kind of funny. It's a weird psychological projection, but I also think that it makes the most sense in regards to this theory. Oh my god, what if, sorry, piggybacking off of the Brian and Stewie theory, like what if Stewie, the shit that Stewie says is really Brian's thoughts that he feels like are not being heard, or his emotions that are not being addressed, and so like that's the emotions that he's projecting onto Stewie, the baby. Kind of interesting, you know? And I feel like Angelica doing the same thing kind of makes sense. Her pretending to like understand the babies is kind of her way of coping with feeling lonely, and so like when she plays with them, and also the adults in her life tend to brush her off, she can connect to these babies and have authority over them because she's controlling the entire narrative, because they don't actually know what the fuck's going on. So her ability to understand the babies is really just a reflection of her own imagination, and I actually really like this theory, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And it explains why the adults only ever hear the babies like babbling, essentially, like they're not saying any actual words. It's because that's what's in reality actually happening. But as a way to cope with being lonely and not having many friends, her only other friend is Susie, she hears the babies talk, but really she's just coming up with the narratives in her head and treating them like her little dolls. And I think that this makes so much sense. It really does. Because I just feel like that's such an eldest cousin thing to do. To treat your fucking little cousin babies like dolls. Like, I just think that this makes perfect sense. I don't know. Either way, I think these theories are super interesting, but that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these different theories. I would love to hear your thoughts. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week, and I will see you guys later. Bye!